It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. And wherever you get your podcasts, search for the KABC News Blitz and give us a subscribe, give us a follow. The timeline is what everyone wants to know today. The timeline for when people can go into their properties and start rebuilding, clear the debris, and start to get their lives back together. And the timeline is getting blurrier and blurrier and more confusing with each passing day. Karen Bass tried to answer a whole bunch of questions yesterday, which led to even more questions because she said two different things in the press conference and when she was walking around with reporters. So Pat Harvey of KCAL wanted to sit down with Karen Bass and Steve Soboroff, who Bass has appointed as her rebuilding czar or whatever, as to what is the timeline for people that lost their homes that they can start rebuilding in the Palisades. Let's see if we can get a clear answer here.
I want to ask you a question that we did in the gaggle there. And just to get this cleared, people were talking about going in, rebuilding right away. If they were able to do it, they wanted to go in and start rebuilding their property. My question to you is, in terms of hazardous materials, waste, do you have to have a special contractor who has the requirements to be able to meet those expectations?
Let me just explain. Phase one, you do not have the option to do it yourself.
Nobody can. Nobody can start rebuilding until the EPA says so.
There are hazardous materials here, toxins. This is not a healthy situation. The EPA is going to do the removal of the hazardous materials. When your property is cleared, you will be notified.
They'll put a little sticker on the front, a little sign.
You get a sticker? Oh, boy.
They'll put a little sticker on the front, a little sign on the front.
Exactly.
And then we go to phase two.
Okay.
And at that point, you have a choice. The Army Corps of Engineers will do the debris removal, and you won't have to pay for it. If you want to have your own certified contractor come up and do it, you can. But one thing that we would encourage everyone to do, in just a few days, the county will have forms available called the right of entry, which then...
Oh, it sounds like more bureaucracy. We need you to fill out 10,000 forms.
Which then gives the EPA the right, the Army Corps of Engineers, in the second phase of it, the right to remove the debris from your house.
Okay. Historically around the country, 95% of the people sign those forms.
Right.
If you don't sign the form, it's going to delay them coming into your home to, we call debris removal. I call it lot clearance.
So this,
unless you want to hire your own people.
So this is law. You have to have EPA during phase.
Yes,
absolutely.
That's right.
Period.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So
So what can we do to speed that up? We need to talk to the feds about speeding up the EPA and getting more hands in there.
So
your individual home impacts the neighborhood. So if you were to go in with toxic materials that you would spread around the neighborhood, and you're unqualified to do that, aside...
How dare you want to clean up your own home? Don't you understand it's going to affect everybody around you? Hasn't all this toxic air and debris and all the ash already spread to everybody because of the winds?
That you would spread around the neighborhood, and you're unqualified to do that. Aside from compromising your own health, you compromise the health of your neighbors.
But some people were not willing to hear that argument.
I know.
They want to do it right away.
Because people are grieving. People have had unbelievable loss.
And they're pissed at you.
And they want to go see their lots. So now they can go see their lots with ID, but they can't start rebuilding until it is safe.
And they say you can only be there for like 2 hours, otherwise you're going to get sick.
FEMA tells me it takes 2 hours to do a house. It's not a big deal to certify. But what I want to see is that, in fact, it is taking 2 hours. I want to know how many crews they have, of how many people working how many hours divided by how many houses.
When are we going to learn that?
And then I know what it is. And then I'll go beg them for more crews, or, what they say is we don't want to, what is it, fumble all over each other?
Okay. So, but people, they want the time. So if I ask you, well, how long is phase one?
Well, in the first house, it'll be 2 days.
Okay.
In the last house.
Steve Sobroff is much better at this than Karen Bass.
In the last house, it may be 90 days from now. But how can I tell you until we quantify what the issue is?
Okay, so we got that out of the way. It does have.
That worked a little better than Karen Bass giving out a timeline and then changing the timeline. It still doesn't look good, but at least be as straight and transparent as you can with what the issue is and what is taking so long. Messaging is very important here.
So we got that out of the way. It does have to have, you have to go through the EPA.
They do not have a choice.
Regardless, for phase one. Okay. You said something, Steve. You said no attics.
Yeah, because attics spread fires.
Oh, there's a hot take. It is something that we have to think about when we talk about rebuilding in these areas that we know historically burn down all the time. Do we have to change the kinds of homes that we build there? I know people want to rebuild their homes, but should we rebuild the exact same types of homes? Or do we have to build homes that can actually stand up to the very real potential of fire? Other than that, I don't know, maybe we kill all the chaparral. Is that anti-environmental? I don't know. But the chaparral are the trees that grow into those disgusting weeds, the brush that are the fuel to the fire. And they're actually trees that germinate from wildfires. They're born from wildfires. They naturally crave wildfires. Shouldn't we destroy all of them like pulling the weeds? Shouldn't we make that tree extinct? I don't care how anti-environmental it is. Let's kill all the chaparral.
Yeah, because attics spread fires, and they help spread them very quickly. So I would encourage people when they rebuild their home they're going to have to use upgrade code.
At what point do we just decide, screw it, let's pave over the entire Santa Monica mountains?
And
get rid of all the coyotes while you're at it.
They're going to have to use upgrade code materials and everything else. But when they reimagine the inside of their home, well, we want our kitchen a little bigger. We want the kids' bedrooms a little smaller because whatever it is, if you have an attic space, I would encourage you. In fact, it's not my choice, but I wouldn't grant a permit to somebody that has an attic.
And he said encourage.
They're not forcing you, but they're saying if you're going to rebuild, maybe consider no attic. Although there is technology in this day and age where it's supposed to help deflect from embers getting into that attic. But yeah, fair point.
That's the other thing. I'm going to ask you about that. You said encourage because you can't prohibit people.
No.
Unless
No,
whoever
unless
they
the
work
code
with
prohibits.
says.
But I'll give you one more. I would encourage people to build all electric.
Okay.
So there's things like
Some people are not going to take too kindly to that.
Okay.
so there's things like
Especially when there is talk of the part of the reason that the grounds there are so toxic is all the batteries that exploded from solar.
Okay.
so there's things like that
That's
we would
stupid.
encourage.
But they don't have to.
But it's important that people be able to rebuild right away. So one of the things that we're going to do in the next couple of weeks is set up a recovery center where 12 city departments are there so you don't have to run around. And it's
That doesn't necessarily ring as an endorsement. We're going to bring all the bureaucracy to one room.
going to start on the west side. Eventually we hope to have it right here at the rec center, but the rec center still has smoke damage, so we're not ready for that. But we will be announcing it. But already on Pico and Westwood, there's the Disaster Recovery Center, and you can go there and have contacts with every level of government agency to replace your IDs, your documents, meet with the SBA.
And you're going to have an app on your phone where you will be able to do 99% of those things from your phone in plain English, Apple style, Tesla.
Steve Sobroff, a government outsider, was on the LA Police Commission, but he's a developer. Has he seen how some of our local apps work? Have you ever tried using 311? Might be doing a little overpromising here, but hey, maybe they will make a really good app.
Tesla style, whatever.
However you
style.
want. Okay.
Just, hey, my question is, where do I get my passport? Or my question is, I don't know who my architect should be or who a contractor should be. All these questions, I call them the Family Feud questions, the top 10 questions. We've done the focus groups, and now that's all being built. And once it gets built, I want to look at it, make it user-friendly, and then I want to take it to the mayor and have her add or subtract. It's not going to take away from anybody else's website.
This sounds like a process that's going to take forever, Steve.
This website, it will refer people. It's going to save people time, It's going to provide them more resources, and it'll take less time.
Meanwhile, Gavin Newsom happened to be in town because he was announcing a whole bunch of philanthropic money coming from Magic Johnson and some of the wealthy that want to help out some of the victims of the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire. And Magic had to introduce Gavin.
And I'm going to pass it on to a man who has probably the toughest job in America right now. But he's doing it with class. He has to take the phone calls, and everybody is want him to focus.
I could think of some tougher jobs in America than being the governor of California, but sure.
Want him to focus on so many different issues, but he is working hard and around the clock. And I'm proud that he's our governor, and I'm proud that he's a friend. Governor Newsom.
I don't know how many people are there, but that's not that much applause.
Thank you, Magic. Thank you, Stan, Casey. I'll brag on them in a moment. But just first, thank you all very much for taking the time to be here.
It's one of those Gavinisms that I always find weird about. I want to brag on you. Can I brag on you? Can I brag on you? I got to brag on you.
Brag on them in a moment. But just first, thank you all very much for taking the time to be here. Thank you, Irvin. Thank you, Magic, for bringing to this effort the spirit that it needs. This effort is about spirit. It's about pride. It's about those intangibles, the things you can't legislate, the things you can't manifest. They just take shape because people come together across every conceivable difference, rowing in the same direction to do the right thing.
Gavin's getting dangerously close to buckets full of cliches in this speech.
Rowing in the same direction to do the right thing, to bend down on one knee to help lift other people up. And that's the spirit of LA Rises. It's around focusing on our sustainable pathway to recovery and rebirth, addressing certainly all the situational challenges that we continue to face as it relates to getting people back into their homes, getting that debris removed, getting those permits processed, and getting those homes rebuilt. But we have to rebuild.
I wonder if Gavin is watching the coverage of Karen Bass getting filleted for not giving great timelines on the rebuilding, and is like, oh, I'm going to leapfrog her because the more she looks bad, the more people don't think about me and associate me with these fires.
And getting those homes rebuilt. But we have to rebuild that sense of spirit and pride in the region and connect the dots between cities that have been impacted, communities that have been devastated, and the larger LA County and region. I'm grateful to Casey and his willingness to commit to this effort.
Casey Wasserman, who's also the guy who's trying to work on the Olympics.
To commit to this effort. He was quite literally one of the first calls I received hours after this devastation saying, what can I do? The answer is yes, and we dialogued a couple hours later, and the seeds of this process were actually fomented. He said, we need civic leaders to come together. We need the private sector to come together. That's the third leg of the stool. It's not just about the state and federal government supporting local responses. It's about the private sector, the civic society coming together. It's about active.
We're all coming together. We're all in this. We're going to do it.
Engaged citizenship. It's about people volunteering. It's about people contributing. And it's about creativity. And I think that's really what I want to emphasize. And I want to thank Stan and the Dodgers for bringing that to life as well, to bring to life and to bring to bear with the LA Dodgers Foundation, the Mark Walters Family Foundation, $100 million. It's not just about...
You know what I would love in this press conference? And it's great. I love the philanthropic efforts. I love getting Magic up there. Everyone can agree that we love Magic Johnson. Can they specifically say what that money's for?
It's not just about the resources. It's about the resourceful mindset that those resources represent. It's about their creativity, their capacity to take a look anew at the process of recovery. It's about looking to seek the best and the brightest designers and architects and developers, the best and most modern strategies for financing. And
I mean, this is 2025. We can figure out how to build somewhere where it doesn't burn down constantly. Have to be able to figure that out.
And developing new procurement strategies to address the issue of cost and address the issue of logistics in a completely fresh and dynamic and distinctive way. All of these are verticals of the larger effort here that we want to bring to bear to create a platform for that kind of engagement so that we quite literally are taking advantage of lessons learned all across the globe as it relates to disaster recovery and even closer to home as it relates to the work that was done up in Sonoma and Coffee Park and what's happened up in Paradise.
I mean, Gavin should be an expert on this. The state has burned down so many times since he became governor.
I come from a city, San Francisco, whose flag has a phoenix on it. It's a flag, phoenix rising from the ashes of the 1906 earthquake. Mindful of the recovery, mindful of the resilience, mindful of our remarkable capacity.
That was 3 mindfuls in 10 seconds. All right, slow down, Gavin. We got lots more Gavin Newsom. We got lots more Gavin being mindful. He took a whole bunch of questions from the press and notably didn't take the bait every time someone tried to ask him something about Trump, which I think is interesting. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. Sit right there. We got more of Gavin Newsom and his press conference with Magic Johnson. Next, it's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. Gavin Newsom held a press conference with Magic Johnson talking about some of the philanthropic efforts to help people devastated by the wildfires. Let's continue with Mr. Gavin.
I come from a city, San Francisco, whose flag has a phoenix on it. It's a flag, phoenix rising from the ashes of the 1906 earthquake. Mindful of the recovery, mindful of the resilience, mindful of our remarkable capacity for renewal and rebirth.
Does he know he does that? Do any of his staffers ever point it out? Or is it just me? Because I've been pointing it out for the last 4 years.
But the framework that is so essential in that is also mindset that we can't lose hope. I know people feel helpless. I was just at another community meeting quite literally an hour ago. The pain, the trauma, the anxiety, the loss of community, loss of identity, self, place, traditions, lifestyles, all of that cannot give way to hopelessness. And what LA Rises...
Well, we would just like confidence that the people we elected are doing their best.
And what LA Rises is about is rising out of that and providing a mindset of optimism that it is achievable, that it is possible, that we can come back more climate resilient, come back stronger, meaning better, slightly different, but also mindful in closing as Magic.
Boy, he is mindful nonstop. Don't play the mindful drinking game. I beg you.
So mindful in closing as Magic reinforced.
And as you know, I always like to point this out whenever we play a Gavin Newsom press conference. He just said in closing, right?
But also mindful in closing as...
He's still got, before he even throws it up into questions, another 2 minutes.
Closing as Magic reinforced. Because one of the first calls that I got was Casey. One of the second calls I got was from Magic and his team. Don't forget about Altadena. Don't forget about that community. Generations.
Second call he got was from Magic Johnson saying, don't just focus on the Palisades, focus on Altadena. There's a whole community there that is very unique, that has been devastated. And that is very true. Thank you, Magic. Now, when Gavin Newsom got to the Q&A, something really interesting happened. A lot of reporters there had questions about specifically like the timeline of rebuilding. Should we even be rebuilding in places like the Palisades? But of course, there's a lot of reporters there that can't help themselves. They got to ask all of the big questions going on in national politics, and they want Gavin Newsom to insert himself. Stir the pot, if you will. And interestingly enough, Gavin did not take the bait over and over and over again. Now, this is the first time he's had a press conference since he met Trump on the tarmac when Trump came into Los Angeles. I think he knows now's the not the right time to poke the bear when you're trying to ask the bear to open up its wallet.
We're here to answer any questions.
What's your reaction to the White House calling for a freeze on federal assistance?
And if I may just, and I'm going to answer all off-topic questions, and we could spend 2 hours together. Any that are on topic, I'm happy to accept.
He did not take the bait, and he did that over and over and over again and would not answer those questions. Very interesting. Well, we'll get to more of the Q&A with Gavin Newsom and Magic Johnson at this press conference. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. And how about this, everyone? 790 KABC welcomes 9 Inch Nails to the Kia Forum on September 18th. Tickets are on sale Wednesday at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, call in number 9 at 1-888-790-5222. Gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. And wherever you get your podcasts, search for the KABC News Blitz. Give us a subscribe. We'd appreciate it. We're going through Gavin Newsom's press conference with Magic Johnson, talking about some of the philanthropic efforts to help people recover from the wildfires. Of course, Gavin's still getting a lot of questions about the timeline for the cleanup of these disaster zones at the Eaton Fire and the Palisades Fire. Before we get back to the sound, let's take your calls at 800-222-KABC. Go to Jay in Duarte. Jay, hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Doing great.
Hey, Randy. Just thanks for taking my call. Just wanted to see, it's unfortunate with the Eaton fire, but just wanted to touch on the whole transporting all this hazmat from the location of the Eaton fire, Altadena, all the way down to Duarte and Irwindale site. I mean, just the chemicals alone, what's the effect? That's, because none of the residents were even notified, and the concern of the long-term medical, things, that health issues that's going to come out of this.
That's a real legitimate concern, and it's got to be really jarring when you just open up the paper and say, hey, they're going to start storing all that toxic material in your neighborhood.
Exactly. I mean, it's in Altadena, that from my understanding that it happened there, and, that they're just using that location in Duarte and between Duarte and Irwindale just to sift through it and then push it on to whatever other locations. Well, why don't they just do it at the incident location instead of, you're going to travel 16 miles on surface streets? And, it's an invisible health issue that it's not going to happen now, but the long term, and being that City of Hope is right there, too.
Yeah, that's something they should really start to consider is maybe we got to, figure out exactly what we're doing with this and at least be as transparent as possible as to what neighborhoods they're going into, what's going in those neighborhoods, and what the after effects can be. Jay, I hopefully will get a clear answer on that for you. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. Let's hear what Gavin Newsom had to say about the timeline.
The White House weighed in again today on what I believe the Army Corps said would be 18 months.
Oh, yeah. So once again, they didn't mic the reporters. So now I have to translate win minus reporter to you. This is Conan Nolan, NBC4. He's talking about the Army Corps of Engineers once again reiterating that 18-month timeline for people to start rebuilding.
Yes, not going to happen.
Gavin says no.
Are you at least a little concerned that we're being overly optimistic, considering?
Conan Nolan asks again, I have to translate because they cannot put a microphone on the reporters in 2025. Are you concerned you're being overly optimistic when you say we're going to beat that deadline?
Just how the scale of the destruction of thousands of homes and lots of that declared. There are only so many dumpsters or dump trucks.
Yeah.
Conan Nolan says there's only so many dump trucks. What do we do?
It's about time.
Well,
Nope. He had a reset.
Well, the essence of this question is not lost on me, because this is where the pessimism can take shape, where people just don't see things happening in real time. But let me tell you specifically.
And yeah, messaging is so important here. We want to see everything that's being done. We want everyone to be transparent. We don't want to just hear, oh, the EPA won't let us do anything. Tell us why the EPA won't let us do anything. Show us what the EPA is doing. Gavin, interesting, just posted a video of what the EPA is doing. And so they've got this spokeswoman showing what the crews are doing. And it's like, we want to make sure that there's no holes and make sure we know where the swimming pools are. And interesting, we have to mark where all the melted electric cars are because we got to get rid of those batteries. And you got to imagine in a neighborhood like the Palisades, that's a lot of electric car batteries.
To take shape where people just don't see things happening in real time. But let me tell you specifically what I mean by that. Just yesterday, FEMA sent a letter in partnership with the state of California to the U.S. EPA on toxic debris, hazardous waste removal, saying we need it done in 30 days. The original commitment was 60 days. Spare no resources. The state is offered unprecedented resources.
Gavin's ready to make it rain. Let's get this crap out of here. But just don't send it to Duarte.
I still have 1,971 National Guard down here. We will do whatever it takes to provide that support for the EPA. They've been provided $175 million, and they need to get it done pursuant not only to the direction of FEMA, but the direction of the President of the United States himself, who wants to move heaven and earth to make sure that happens sooner. So the debris removal...
Once again, you notice Gavin is doing everything he can to flatter the president. He's doing everything he can not to insult the president, because you've got to get along to go along these days.
Wants to move heaven and earth to make sure that happens.
Of course, I wish he would have realized that earlier when he spent the whole last 3 months talking about doing all the other stuff to antagonize the incoming administration, but here we are now.
Wants to move heaven and earth to make sure that happens sooner. So the debris removal, phase 1, we want done in the next 30 days. Number 2, concurrent to that, not after 30 days, concurrent to that, phase 2 debris removal can begin when people do a right of entry. Once they sign off on a right of entry, they can do it, debris removal for themselves.
So Gavin is saying we'll get this done in 30 days, hopefully. Karen Bass and Steve Sobroff are like it's going to be anywhere from a month to 9 weeks. Who knows?
Debris removal for themselves through a private contractor, or they can get the support from the Army Corps that has a California-based prime contractor, ECC. If they cannot afford to do it themselves, they can have the Army Corps do it. They'll bill their insurance, but there'll be no subsequent bills if it costs more than their insurance line item that's picked up by the federal government.
What if your insurance dropped you if you're on the FAIR plan? SOL?
And we are coordinating that at a level.
By the way, it's a very different thing than, the Army Corps of Engineers is going to clean up your debris if you're not going to pay for your own. Then the Army Corps of Engineers is going to do it through a contractor that we've picked out, and we're going to bill your insurance for it.
And we are coordinating that at a level that's contemporary in this context to the work that they just did in Maui, with the lessons learned, the examples in Maui. And
there were a lot of mistakes made in Maui.
And so they're already on the ground. The colonel's on the ground. He was here a week ago. And we're coordinating that phase 2 to get that done. Now, in that process, that's also a concurrent process. Once the debris is removed in phase 2, goes up on a website. It's not phase 1, then we begin phase 2. Phase 2, we begin the rebuilding. It all happens in real time. So no resources spared. Part of what LA Rises is about is getting the best minds in philanthropy, in the private sector, in industry, experts in architecture, experts in materials, experts, to your question, in logistics.
Everyone wants to help rebuild LA.
Experts in master procurement to look at the issue of cost. Workforce that we're already working on, providing an educated and substantive workforce that is prepared to deal with the magnitude of this. All of that is a big part of what we're currently doing, and I know what local government's doing. You're right, be cautious about overpromising, but I don't want to understate what we're capable of when we're all moving in the same direction with a sense of urgency that we brought to bear with the damage assessment team that got that job done 4 days ahead of time, and no one...
Oh, wait, you know what the damage is? Can you tell us?
And no one thought we can get it done within 2 weeks. We've proven them wrong already, and we're going to prove them wrong on phase 1 and phase 2.
So Gavin's not overly optimistic, but he's overly optimistic. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. Let's go to Bill in La Cañada. Bill, hello.
Hey, Randy, I'm as fascinated as you are about Gavin's rhetorical style, and I think I'm coming close to figuring it out. Gavin sounds like a cross between a heavy-breathing phone stalker robot and Captain Kirk of the Starship Enterprise doing one of his overly dramatic apocalyptic soliloquies that riff on every random thought coming into his head. So something like this: I stand here, right foot next to left foot planted on the scorched earth, and earth subjected to existential global warming caused by fossil fuel emissions, mercilessly spewed, ejected with full thrust into the virginal skies. We remain mindful of our mortal mandate to restore the equity and diversity of our green garden of Eden, known as the state of California.
You know what, Bill? I think that makes a lot of sense. Gavin Newsom has the speech patterns of Shatner without any of the charm.
Exactly.
There you go, buddy. Thanks so much for the call. Let's go to John in Ventura. John, hello.
Hey, Randy. Called you about a month and a half ago regarding Langers and Karen Bass and all her lies. A couple things I wanted to chime in on. Coincidentally, I'm a contractor. I could cite my source, 888-457, Contractors License Board. The rain, I think, is going to end up possibly hurting them quite a bit more, because what that's going to do is all of those toxins are going to seep into the soil even deeper. And once they clean, they're going to have to do probably multiple soils reports, because even if you take a bare piece of property that has not had any fire damage or any toxicity, you still have to do soils reports for impact, hardening, etc. They're going to have to do it, probably numerous ones, like a gas station that goes down and then it has to kind of degas itself. So they're going to have to go through all that. And that Steve, what's his name, Sephiroth? I mean, I don't know. I don't see him as that highly educated, because attics don't cause or lead to more fires. It's the vents, the open vents. So if you don't have an open vent and it's just all stuccoed up the side, then the embers are not going to fly in. They did a observation of the Palisades fire. I think there were a bunch of architects, and what they noticed was the ones that were standing didn't have any vents in their attics. And that was one of the keys to a lot of the houses that are standing. And then one last thing. Okay, I'm in Prescott now, but I lived in Ventura Beach for 20 years. And that, Ventura, when that fire hit in 2017, that was the largest fire in the history of California. It is now number 8. And I'm going to upload a video to the John channel to show that. But I want to give you this, Randy, because I know you do a lot of research, and John Phillips. This is quite eerie. The Ventura fire was the first largest in 2017. Now it's the 7th or the 8th. The 7 largest fires in the history of California, go look it up, all your listeners, are all under Newsom. You cannot say the 7 biggest hurricanes were under DeSantis. You can't say the 7 biggest tornadoes are under a certain governor in Tennessee or in Kentucky. The 7 big, and I'm not even talking about Palisades or Altadena. The 7 largest fires quantitatively, not monetarily, are under Newsom. That is weird.
It's pretty weird, and they seem to be getting more and more and more destructive despite all the spending that Gavin said he has done to address this issue. John, thanks so much, as always, for your helpful information and for calling in. Call in anytime. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC, and I want to invite you next Friday to see myself and John Phillips in Orange County. Come see Johnny and I broadcast live from noon to 3 on Friday, February 7th at Rove Santa Ana. Rove Santa Ana is a full-service EV charging station for commuters and road trippers. It's got 40 ultra-fast EV chargers, a 24/7 lounge with restrooms and free Wi-Fi, a car wash, and a premium convenience store, Recharge by Gelson's. They're going to be at the event. We're going to have free samples and vendors and barbecue going on, so come hungry as we broadcast live. Rove Santa Ana and Recharge by Gelson's are located at 1008 East 17th Street in Santa Ana, off the 5 at the corner of East 17th and Lincoln. We'll see you live Friday the 7th. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. If you'd like to email us, you can do so at randykabc@gmail.com. Susan writes in with the subject line, Gavin Newsom is the most clueless, delusional, puffed up a-hole ever. And she wrote that in all caps. Randy, the unbelievable nerve of this guy. What I am mindful of is that Gavin Newsom's policies caused these horrendous fires, as well as all the horrendous fires we have experienced in this state for years and years, including the Paradise Camp fire that killed 85 people and leveled that community. All of which have happened since he's been in office, since you have pointed out. Only Gavin Newsom would respond to his responsibility for these horrors by hacking up the usual word salads of no shame, no remorse, no guilt, just incredible. And even before I could correct her, Susan sent a second email saying, correction, the campfire happened in 2018 under Jerry Brown, but in my defense, Gavin was in the wings as lieutenant governor and guaranteed he was up to no good even then. Susan, I appreciate your passion. We'll continue to cover this, get as clear of a timeline as we can on when people can rebuild, because people want to rebuild, and we got to make sure we rebuild in a way that something like this does not happen again. 2025. We have to be able to figure that out. Thank you all so much for listening to this show every day. It's such a pleasure to bring it to you, covering the local issues that matter to you most. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC.